All right, we'll go ahead and call this Tooele City Planning Commission meeting to order this Wednesday, May 8th, 2024, at the hour 7 p.m. here in City Council chambers. First item on our agenda tonight is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2 on our agenda is our roll call. Commissioner Proctor?
Here.
Commissioner Robinson?
Here.
Commissioner Dunn?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
I'm Chairman Hamilton. I am also here. Will please excuse Commissioner Sloan and Commissioner Jensen. Please recognize Councilwoman Goches, staff members Hanson, Hall, and Agard. Number 3 on our agenda is a public hearing and recommendation. It's a consideration of proposed amendments to Tooele City Code 7-14-4, Table 3, for site planning and development standards for primary buildings and structures regarding the encroachment of architectural elements into the rear yard setback of residential lots. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate this opportunity to present to you yet another ordinance amendment in an attempt to clarify and make things a little easier to understand and to eliminate some ambiguities within the code itself. So you're probably all familiar with setbacks and so forth and how they work. We do have some rear yard setbacks that are established by the code, and they vary by zoning districts. Structures are not permitted to encroach within the rear yard setback. These setbacks are measured from property line to the foundation of the structure. And decks, porches, walkout basement, stairwells, and so forth are not described or otherwise addressed in the city's code, which eliminates the nature of the issue. Does the Tooele City Code currently prohibit decks, porches, and basement stairwells from encroaching into the rear yard setback? Well, it depends on how you look at the code, and this is where it gets a little confusing, so we're attempting to clarify that. And it all comes down to the city's definition of a structure. In the city's ordinance 7-1-5, which is our definitions ordinance, it defines a structure as a combination of materials to form a construction for use, installed on, above, or below the surface of land or water, including a walled and roofed building. So if it does not include a wall or a roof, technically it's not a structure. So yes, our ordinance does not prohibit a deck or a porch from encroaching into the setback as long as it's not covered. However, the ordinance doesn't clearly specify that. In regards to walkout basements, we've had problems in the past where individuals have wanted to install those on their homes. And since setbacks are measured to the foundation, we have interpreted the ordinance in the past that if a walkout basement is constructed of concrete and attached to the foundation, it is part of the foundation. And those have not been permitted to encroach within the setback. Recently, the state legislature passed HB 476, which requires cities to permit these architectural elements to encroach within the setback. So that's kind of the impetus behind this ordinance amendment, is to comply with the state code. However, we'd also like to clarify that and make it a little easier to understand for those looking to comply with the code, and also for staff's ability to interpret the code to those that have questions. So what we're proposing is a pretty simple ordinance amendment. We're proposing just changes to Table 3. This is the table that spells out and lists all the setback requirements for new development. You'll note that in the little square highlighted in red there on the left, there are just the addition of 2 footnotes, note number 5. And then that refers the reader to the new note added at the bottom of the table, which basically states that uncovered porches, decks, and walkout basement stairwells may extend into the rear yard setbacks. Note that the language states that they are uncovered. If the deck or porch or walkout stairwell are covered by walls or a roof and attached to the home, they then become an extension of the home and would then be subject to meet the setback requirements. These changes refer only to uncovered architectural elements, as they are not defined as a structure. This does not permit them to encroach within the side yard setback. As you know, side yards are usually fairly narrow, and there's public utility easements there and so forth. And then if somebody were to construct a deck and attach it to the home that was uncovered and it encroaches into the setback, if they wanted to come back later on and cover it, make it part of the house, they would be denied a building permit, as then it becomes part of the structure and would create a nonconformity. So this would only relate to uncovered decks, porches, and so forth. Here's a couple of images showing what exactly would be permissible and what's not. The item on the left would be permissible. It's an uncovered deck, and it is attached to the home. The image on the right shows a deck that is covered by a roof. It has support columns that could be walled in. That deck is attached to the home and therefore is considered, or is covered and attached to the home and therefore considered an extension of the home. That would not be permitted to extend within the setback. In regards to a porch, the porch on the left is an uncovered concrete block porch that would be permitted to extend in the setback. And on the right, you'll note that the porch is covered with a roof and columns. That is considered a structure and would be an extension of the home, so not permissible. And then a walkout basement, the item on the left, the walkout basement is uncovered, would be permissible in the setback. On the right, the walkout basement is covered and would not be permissible. So that's the ordinance we're proposing. We're doing this, one, to comply with state code, state requirements. Number two, to clarify the difference between an uncovered structure, uncovered architectural element, and a covered structure. So that's what we're proposing. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
All right, we'll go ahead and bring this back to the commission for questions or comments. Yes.
Actually, I do have a couple of questions. So what constitutes a cover? A sunshade? A pergola?
Pergola is not considered a structure in that the roof is not solid. And so that is something that the ordinance currently does not address, is pergolas and shade structures of that nature. That is a future fix that we're going to have to address. This basically would refer to any kind of covering that falls underneath the definition of a structure by our ordinance. So a roof and walls.
All right. So one of the retractable awnings would not fall under this?
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Any other questions from the commission? All right, Mr. Agard, this one does require a public hearing. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this particular item, if anybody has anything to add their input. Nothing? Okay.
Oh, we have it covered.
Good. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item and bring it back to the commission for further action.
Mr. Chair, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the rear yard setbacks text amendment request by Tooele City based on the findings listed in the staff report.
I got a motion for a positive recommendation from Commissioner Robinson. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Proctor, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Dunn?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. That one is a positive recommendation going up to the City Council at a 5-0 vote. Number 4 on our agenda is a public hearing and a recommendation. This is a consideration of proposed amendments to Tooele City Code 7-14-6, accessory structures requirements regarding the location of accessory structures, firewall ratings, lot coverage, and metal shipping containers. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Chairman. This ordinance I wanted to sink my fingers into for a long time. This is an ordinance that does need some clarifications. I want to state that before I dive into this, that we aren't changing any standards with these proposals. We're just trying to clarify and make the ordinance less ambiguous and easier to understand and interpret for the general public. So we've all seen accessory structures. We probably all have accessory structures. They come in all shapes and sizes. They can be horse barns, They can be accessory dwelling units, greenhouses. They're all permitted within Tooele City, and this ordinance doesn't change or alter that in any way. Okay? Sometimes accessory structures aren't so pretty, but nonetheless, they are permissible. And we don't have any architectural standards for accessory structures, so you can build an ugly structure yesterday, and you can build an ugly one tomorrow if you want to. Okay? What we're trying to do is we're trying to just clarify some things. We as staff receive quite a few inquiries from members of the public who want to put an accessory structure on a vacant lot. And oftentimes it comes down to an extensive discussion to try and explain to them why you can't put an accessory structure on a vacant lot. There's a lot of reasons for that. Primarily, the ordinance as it's currently written does prohibit that, but it's not necessarily clear or easy to understand. The reasons we don't want accessory structures on a vacant lot is because accessory structures have to be accessory or ancillary to a main residential dwelling. And if you put an accessory structure on a vacant residential lot, and they use that structure for RV storage or for an auto shop, you're changing the use of that property from residential to auto repair or storage. And for a residential lot, you can't do that. So that's why we have this in the code. We're proposing just a change of language to the following. So accessory buildings and structures on residential lots may only be permitted if they are accessory to an established primary residential structure, or if they are constructed in conjunction with a primary residential structure. Sometimes people will build a home at the same time they want to build a detached garage or a shed. The reason we want to include that in there is sometimes people want to live in a shed while they're building their home. Can't do that. And the reason behind that is sometimes it's difficult to get them to take that RV or that temporary residential structure off the property. So we want to make sure that the ordinance clearly states accessory structures have to be accessory to a primary dwelling, and you can build it while the house is being built. So that's hopefully clarifies that. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those. Now, can accessory structures have a 1-foot setback? The answer is yes, if they meet 3 criteria. Those criteria are listed there. The roof can't go over the property line. All buildings on the site have to have a 1-hour firewall rating, and there aren't any public utility easements or drainage. So what we want to look at is numbers 1 and 2 and kind of clarify those a little bit. What does it mean for the roof to infringe on the adjoining property? Does it mean it can't overhang the property line? Does it mean that water can't drain onto the property when there's a storm? It's not necessarily clear on what we're trying to achieve there. So what we're proposing is to add the word or drain, or the words or drain in regard to criteria number A. So your roof cannot infringe or drain onto the adjoining property. We want to make sure the property owner, if they're going to have that 1-foot setback, that they keep their storm water that falls on that structure on their property. And then it's also, I think it's counterproductive to have all the accessory buildings on the site with a 1-hour fire rating if they're not anywhere near the building that has the 1-foot setback. So in working with Brad, the building official, he and I agree that just having the wall adjacent to the property line with the 1-hour firewall rating is sufficient, rather than having all the buildings on the property with the 1-hour firewall rating. The purpose behind this is if there's a fire or something on the adjacent lot, that building that's close to the property line can resist the fire long enough for the emergency vehicles to come and put the fire out. So we're recommending that the language be changed to the wall adjacent to the property line, rather than require the property owner to have all the buildings with that 1-hour firewall rating. Reason being is 1-hour firewall ratings cost more to build. They have I'm not a builder or a building inspector, but it's more costly. So we're trying to provide a little relief there to the public. You've dealt with these many times with conditional use permits where buildings wish to exceed the 8% lot requirement. Currently, the ordinance is not clear on this 8%. You'll see that Section 3, that's the ordinance that prohibits the 8% lot coverage. And then it refers you to 7-14-6, Section 8, which is actually Section 9, in which it describes how the Planning Commission can grant a conditional use permit to exceed the 8% lot coverage. But it's not clear. Okay, so I just want to change that language. Number one, correct it, referring to Section 9, and then just adding the language, which exceeds 8% lot coverage restriction for accessory buildings. And then also just clarifying how we measure roof height. Oftentimes, the public are confused into how we do that. So that's the changes we're proposing there, making that easier to understand. And then you all have seen shipping containers. They come in various shapes and sizes. As you can see on this slide, shipping containers are very industrial in their appearance, and they are industrial in their use. Usually you see them in shipping yards, on large transportation ships, and on rail transportation. They are also very popular for storage containers. A lot of people call our office and request to utilize these containers as sheds on their properties. So let me ask the Planning Commission, are shipping containers currently permitted in Tooele City as accessory structures?
No.
They are not. So we're not changing anything with this ordinance. Again, we're just clarifying. So why are they not permitted? Again, that definition of structures. It has to be a combination of materials to form a construction for use. It has to have a foundation. I have fielded many long debates with the members of the public about how these aren't structures. Yes, there are people that turn them into homes. We have the Swig building just north of the Wells Fargo. That's a structure, or that's a container. But by our ordinance, listed right there, they are not structures. And so what we're proposing, just to clarify this, the addition of paragraph number 10 that basically states metal shipping containers are prohibited as accessory storage structures in all residential zones. Done. No more debate. So those are the changes we're proposing to the accessory structures ordinance. Again, we're not changing standards. We're just trying to clarify. If you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
All right, I'll bring this back to the commission for questions.
I have some questions.
Commissioner Anderson.
So, the shipping container, what changes it from a shipping container to a structure?
The ordinance definition in how it refers to a combination of materials to form a construction.
Okay, so is one of those Rubbermaid sheds from Home Depot a better option for storage structure?
I would say yes, it would be, in that they are constructed on the site.
Okay. So if a storage or if a shipping container is put on a foundation, does it become a structure? Because you have combinations of materials on site.
That's the issue. And that's why we're doing this ordinance amendment, is to eliminate that ambiguity, that confusion.
All right.
Because
So
you're presenting the same argument that the general public presents to me every day, or when I field these requests. And so the purpose of this ordinance amendment is to eliminate that ambiguity. I can't address that because you're raising the same questions that have been raised by the general public.
So I kind of feel that it's kind of short-sighted if we're just going to say no shipping containers, because we can make shipping containers look pretty if it's just a pretty issue, and if it's on a foundation.
Yeah, you can definitely make that recommendation to the city council. I have no problem with that.
So the code that prohibits them now is just because they're not defined as structures?
Yes, and that's the interpretation of the code as well.
So is there other things that are not, I mean, like Kelly said, is like that plastic shed, is that defined as a structure likewise? Because it's I mean, you can make the same argument.
Yes, and that's the crux of the issue.
Okay,
It is an intense debate.
all right. So
Those are all valid points, and it's gotten to the point where we need to clarify it. Do we want shipping containers as sheds or not? If we want them as containers, then as storage sheds, then fine. If we don't, then we need to clarify it, because the debate, I can't give you the answers, and it comes down to interpretation.
It just seems if we're going to clarify it, let's clarify what a structure is definitively, and then we don't have to outlaw or single out anything. That would be my only hesitation of singling out storage containers. I agree that they shouldn't necessarily be used as storage, but I think we should ban them by definition clarity rather than by specifically calling them out. Because we can make the same argument for a really ugly plastic shed from Home Depot. And if it's hideously ugly, we could say, oh, that's not a structure. And then we're on the slippery slope of the same thing.
And I honestly don't
disagree. It's just.
This is just what you're proposing, right?
It's a constant debate. It's
Okay,
a constant debate. It's a constant argument. We just need to clarify it one way or the other.
Looking at this code, I really don't see where a shipping container should not be allowed. You're saying that it's not a structure only because it's not built in place?
Pretty much, yeah. They bring them in and on a truck, and they drop them off, and they just put them out there on the dirt. They usually don't put them on a foundation, and it
All
just
right.
doesn't comply with that structural definition.
So maybe we should require that they're battened down on a foundation rather than to prohibit them.
If that's what we want to do.
I can kind of see you're just trying to clarify the code. You're not trying to outlaw them yourself, so that's where I can see.
Well,
They're already not allowed.
They're already
just
not
clarifying
allowed,
the
yeah.
code.
So the underlying issue may be a little deeper on if.
It's got to be addressed in a different manner.
Well, they're not.
Well,
See, the problem is that if there's a debate, then it's not clear that they're not allowed.
it's
All right.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So if there's ambiguity there, then that opens us up for, I mean, realistically, litigation. If someone really wants to push it, and if there's ambiguity, they can win.
Well, the way that the zoning administrator interprets this code right here on your screen is that it's not permissible.
Okay.
But as I've said before, it can be debated up and down,
Right.
forward and backward, 3 ways from Sunday. And
And people are doing it anyway. To be honest, I mean, they're out there.
yeah. And the other question has to be asked, do we want them as sheds in
Right.
our residential zones? They are an industrial use.
Or they're a residential use if they're done right.
They can be, yes.
So I'm almost wondering if that discussion needs to happen too. It won't happen with us.
No. I don't like the ambiguity, but I don't like the heavy-handedness that I see either. So it is a catch-22.
It is. And it's a difficult issue, and I've been dealing with it for 6 years, no, more longer than that. Even in Riverton, I was dealing with it, so. This is the fix that I'm proposing. That's just, if you have a different option or a different idea, let's look at it.
Absolutely. Any thoughts for any other ideas? Most cities like this, they don't allow them.
Pretty much the same situation we have here. In Riverton, we did not permit them, we did not prohibit them. I don't know if Jared has any insights from Roy or Murray, but
Same. And they oftentimes don't fall under they don't require permits. They're oftentimes small enough to not need a permit. So people are asking you, are these okay? And most times cities, in my experience, have fallen back on that same kind of, our issue with them isn't that they can't be pretty, it's that The difference between them and the Rubbermaid shed from Costco or Home Depot or whatever is that that's at least intended for residential use, where the shipping container was intended for industrial uses and looks very industrial. When they modify it, like the commissioner's talking about, they could be nice. But they don't tend to do that in the residential backyards where they drop them. They're getting them because they're cheaper or something, or available.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Should we open the public hearing and let you guys think a little bit longer?
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you, Andrew. This item does require a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak to the code on the structural issues of accessory units.
Jill. I'm going to need some feedback from you because I can understand them being industrial, but as what I'm hearing is it's more about the look. So in other cities, there are stack homes that are containers. They're used for offices, they're used for commercial, they're used for storage, they're used for ADUs. What needs to be changed?
Will you state your name for the record too, please?
Kalani.
Thank you. Throw her under the bus.
It's Becky Harvey.
Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome. So it's very one-sided, which is probably why you're getting some of the pushback, because when you look at the available uses, the cost, the square footage versus a shed that's going to blow over, what's the difference between a storage container that's structurally more sound than a tin storage shed that can have plywood flooring? So I think the clarity needs to be rounded from storage containers, stack homes, offices, drink shops, diabetes. So that's where I'm going with it. There's no clarity even with that change.
Okay. Thank you. She's always prepared.
And I say amen. That was all the things I was going to say.
All right, seeing no one else approach, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item and bring it back to the commission for further discussion.
Ed, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Hey, Andrew,
absolutely.
when they did that swig, was there anything specifically that they were required to do to kind of hide the fact that it was a shipping container, or was it a little bit more understandable because it wasn't in a residential area? I remember when the plans came through and it was a shipping container, but they definitely prettied it up.
Yeah, they had to do some improvements to it, but the difference is the commercial zones have no architectural standards.
Okay.
So you can do any kind of a building as long as it satisfies the building codes. The residential zones have architectural standards. They have to have a pitched roof. They have to have certain qualifications of masonry, a porch, all those things. And again, it comes down to the definition of a structure. So in residential zones, I've seen housing that's been made out of these shipping containers, and it can be done tastefully. But it comes down to what the city's definitions are going to permit, what it's not. And I don't think that maybe an architect could dress up a storage container to be a nice house and meet all of the architectural standards. I don't know. That's the difference, is you could put those in an industrial or commercial zone all the time. We don't have any standards for that, but residential we do, and it gets a little cumbersome. Does that answer your question?
It does, it does. And well, can I ask one more question? I know the push from the state is to be a lot more permissive on ADUs. And seeing how that these things can be used as ADUs prospectively, will this potentially come into conflict with what the legislature says we have to permit as far as ADUs go?
It may come into conflict in that our code requires an ADU to complement and resemble the main structure. So if you have a home that's stucco and stone and it has a nice pitched roof on it, and you bring in a shipping container that's rust red and plop it down and put a window in it, does that satisfy that ordinance requirement?
Okay,
That's the question.
I know the trend now at the Capitol is to be very permissive and lenient towards
You're right.
ADUs. And
They
so
are.
that's-
They're putting their thumb on
Right.
everything. So this probably will come back in the future in greater, I don't know, greater approach, I guess you could say. So,
Additionally, I'm looking at price per square foot on a build for a residential home, and if we're going to just flat out say shipping container can't be an accessory unit, the price per square foot on a build-out, we're looking at trying to increase affordable housing, and a little bit of cosmetics and lipstick on a shipping container can go a long way to lower that cost per build.
So what I'm kind of gathering from everybody up here is we're not particularly putting down what's presented to us tonight, but we want to see a different change in kind of the storage containers, period.
There's a lot of things that has been presented here that I think are really important, but the feel of just saying no shipping containers, it's not a structure, it doesn't feel right.
And almost defining what a structure is too, huh?
Right. And this definition of a structure doesn't feel right.
Well, that's already in there.
yeah, that's
The
it.
definition doesn't change.
I agree, it is, but it doesn't, I think that might need the change and not there's the no shipping container.
Commissioner Dunn?
So I guess maybe it comes down to the intended use of the shipping container, because if they intend to use it to construct a dwelling, then it becomes a building material in the purpose of construction, not necessarily just a shipping container plopped down in their backyard.
Yeah, once it becomes a dwelling, it falls into the architectural requirements of a dwelling,
Yeah.
of the home. Whereas an accessory structure, just as a storage, there are no architectural constraints.
And then all of those other things that they have to have in place for it to be an approved dwelling come into play, and there's more structural standards that they have to meet, other than plopping two shipping containers on top of each other and you get a big windstorm and one flips over.
And the definition does do a good job of spelling out it's only as an accessory storage structure that they're not there.
Right.
Just a
Where
matter of whether that goes
For
too
me,
far
as
or not.
they're already prohibiting, or he's just trying to clarify the language for now, I would like to make a motion that we, positive recommendation for the city council as is presented by Andrew.
I second.
Okay, I got a positive recommendation to send this to City Council from Commissioner Proctor and a second from Commissioner Dunn. Any more discussion before we take it to a vote? All right, we'll take it to a vote. Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Nay.
Commissioner Dunn?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Nay.
I am Chairman Hamilton, and I will also vote nay, just for the mere reason that I think there's a bigger issue, and I think we need to clarify some things with what a structure is. Storage containers, we might be evolving this into something bigger, like you said, so.
And no matter what recommendation we give, the people who get the big money are going to be the ones that decide it anyway. So
And she's heard our discussion, so she can forward that on as well, so.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, number 5 on our agenda tonight is our city council reports. Councilwoman Goches.
Thank you,
Chairman Hamilton and Commission and also staff. Ed Hansen had a commitment tonight, and also Marisa, and asked me if I would come and give a report. City Council met May 1st of this month, and so I just wanted to start with reminding residents and the Commission that the Tooele City water and sewer fee increase is going to go into effect. In fact, it went into effect May 1st, but it won't be impacting your bill until June 1st. And the reason for that, or the need for the increase, is to support the critical infrastructure for both of those services, both water and sewer. We also discussed an ordinance 2024-09, and we approved. It was codifying a previously enacted overlay planned zone district regulation that included standards, land use, setbacks, zoning codes, and it now codifies the overlay document. And so it will have its own zoning code, allowing the public to be able to reference that document, and it is available on our city website. The third thing that we discussed was Resolution 2024-29, and that is to approve our tentative adopting the budget. And this was presented by Shannon Wimmer. Our mayor is the budget officer, and we discussed that as per state law, May 1st. We will have additional discussion on May 15th. So the details at the May 15th meeting will be available to the public. There is also a copy of the budget book that is available on the city website, and also a hard copy in the recorder's office if anybody wants to go and see that. So there will be a public hearing to adopt the budget, and that is set for June the 19th. We discussed Resolution 2024-30. It was approved by the council, and that was a resolution consenting to the mayor's appointment of John Perez to the position of the Director of the Economic Development Department. And the fifth item we discussed was Resolution 2024-32 that was approved by the council, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement with the Tooele County Dispatch Services, and that's for FY 24 and 25. The dispatch services are both for fire and police services, and the cost that was asked is $319,200. That was approved. The sixth item was a resolution 2024-33 that was approved by the council. It's a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement with Mountain High Electronics for furnishing an 80-foot communications tower and emergency communication equipment at Fire Station Number 3. The amount was $114,000. Council and staff took a tour of the construction site for Fire Station Number 3, and it was very informative and nice to see what a beautiful facility is, with future opportunity for firefighters to have housing there and have full-time firefighters. That's in the future. The seventh item is Resolution 2024-35, and that was also approved by the council if we're in agreement with Cache Valley Electric for the installation of the traffic signal system that's at the intersection of 1000 North and 100 East Street. The eighth item that we discussed was Resolution 2024-36 that was also approved by the council. It was an agreement with JUB Engineers for a salt storage building that will be located on Rogers Street. And that site is also the site of a future well. And so they are looking at this site as a whole, encompassing both the well and the salt shed. So we hired JUB to do design services in geotech for water and for design services and geotechnical information, and that is going to be paid for through water funds and also funds for the salt sheds. The cost was $66,400, so that was a lot of money, but it encompassed more than just the design of the salt shed. And the location is going to be on Rogers Street, and it will be down by the county trailhead. So we will move the gates that prevent people from accessing Rogers Road during the winter when we have snow depths that make it impossible for people to cross. So we will maintain that road, that location, and allow access to salt at the north end of Tooele. The ninth thing on our agenda was a resolution 2024-41, and it was approved by City Council. That's a resolution of the Tooele City Council amending the Tooele City fee schedule regarding the fees at the water reclamation facility. And this is going to allow and encourage commercial use at our waste treatment facility and try to prevent illegal dumping at the RV dump station. So we'll be able to encourage commercial waste to dump at that facility. We also had a clarification on ordinance 2024-10. That was the new culinary water rates. They're fairly minimal, but it does impact our residents. And so information was sent out in the 90 North Main and in the water bill so that people understand that there will be an increase to the fees for service. We also had a clarification on ordinance 2024-11, and that's on the sanitary sewer rates. Again, increased to be able to improve our services. The 12th item was Resolution 2024-39, and that was approved by City Council for Jensen Family Landscape for the Tooele City Hall project. And we are going to use some water-wise and zero-scaping in the front of City Hall. We're going to thin out some of the trees and again make this an example for residents that they can see how to use this zero-scaping. The cost for this is $88,500, and the city has been able to apply for a state grant to be reimbursed through WaterWise in the amount of $11,000. So we held off on that project to allow us to be able to obtain state funds to offset that cost. So does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for council? All right, Ms. Coaches, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 6 on our agenda is a review and approval for the Planning Commission minutes for the meeting held on April 24th, 2024. Do I have any corrections or additions that need to be made? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes for Wednesday, April 24th's Planning Commission meeting.
Got a motion to approve from Commissioner Anderson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner Proctor, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Dunn?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. Those minutes pass. Number 7 on our agenda. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you, Commissioner Anderson.